With the slow-starting Crows who finally overcame the Dees last weekend in a tough and sometimes explosive affair. Join the crew as we chat about the match, bring you news from around the AFL and preview next week's big match versus the Dogs. Don't worry, Paddy, we'll fly the flag. This is CrowCast.
TNT, I'm dynamite. TNT, and I'll win the fight. TNT, I'm a power load. TNT, watch me explode.
Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us again for another episode of CrowCast. Tonight we've got the usual suspects with us. We've got Danos. How you going, Danos?
Good, thanks, Phoenix. How are you?
Pretty good, mate. And we've got Waffle. How you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, Phoenix. How are you?
Pretty good. And we've got, of course, Nikki. How you going, Nikki?
I'm doing very well, and I promise not to mention the B word for you tonight.
Nikki's in the naughty corner because she saw Billy Piper last week and didn't tell anyone.
I touched her.
Oh, just wrong.
Were you arrested?
No.
It was a story about the baked beans down the bloody pants that got me.
Well, somebody asked her a question regarding Secret Diary of a Call Girl and what was one of the oddest things she ever had to do, and that was it.
I just can't imagine. The words don't do it justice. Anyway, let's move along. And, of course, our first segment tonight is Nikki's News. So over to you, Nikki.
Once again, we really are liking the look of the ladder, I suspect. The big thing, again, always the injuries. Geelong, Bartell's going to miss 2 months with a tear in his medial ligament. Tom Lonergan suffered concussion. Matthew Stokes has injured his Achilles. Updates on those are going to be provided later on the week from Geelong, but they're not looking good. Collingwood, Ben Reid, they anticipate he's probably actually going to miss the first half of the season with a quad injury. They're taking it basically week by week and not too sure what's exactly going on there. For the Saints, Revolt and Montagna, because Revolt pulled out of the game in the warm-up, he had a bit of calf tightness. They're going to test later in the week, so they may end up in New Zealand. They may not. Poor old North Melbourne. So Jack Zeeble and Daniel Wells are out, along with defender Jamie McMillan. Jack Zeeble had spent 2 nights in hospital with a bruised lung, which I've never heard of that one before. Wells and McMillan have been nursing Achilles injuries, and so they'll be out for 1 to 2 weeks each. And, of course, a former Crow player, poor old Chris Knights, his hamstring has shown damage. He's going to have surgery on it and he'll be out for 10 to 12 weeks. And the big one from the mob down the road, Ollie Wines, has dislocated his wrist of all things, and so he's out for 4 to 5.
Any word on Bontempelli and a couple of the other doggies? They've got a few injuries, haven't they?
Yeah, they do have a few. I think Wallace is a definite to miss. Bontempelli, and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. There's still tests on those, so they may come up, they may not. We don't know much information on them yet.
Matthew
Hopefully,
Boyd, that is.
Yes, Matthew Boyd. There it was. Hopefully, Doggies poster who's going to join us later on can possibly give us a bit more information what's going on there. Now, the AFL did manage to raise some money this week. There were quite a few fines from our melee. So Rory and Tomo are out $1,500 each. Jenkins, Walker and Yanch are out $1,000. So from Melbourne, Bernie, Dean, Kent and Nathan Jones all got the $1,500 fine, and Kennedy Harris got the $1,000. So that's a total of $11,500. $11,500 raised for the AFL. Interesting that they didn't even bother to look at any of the other incidents that occurred during that game. How on earth they didn't even look at the Laird one, I don't know. Chris Yarran, he has copped 3 weeks for the hit on Chapman. It was a very nice left hook, but he did take 3 goes to get him. That, of course, got sent straight to the tribunal. And the interesting one is Andrew Moore, who was always thought to possibly be the replacement for Ollie Wines. He's out for 3 weeks because he pushed an umpire in the SANFL. Because it was intentional contact, it went direct to the tribunal. And at the moment, Port will be weighing up whether they're going to appeal the severity of that or not. And that was kind of it for the reports. Now, of course, the other things that have been happening around the AFL, the big news that came out today is Gary Ablett has signed a new 3-year deal worth $1 million each season. It's nice money if you can get it. So he'll see out the rest of his career with Gold Coast. And then a bit of the rise again on the Essendon front with the drugs. Asada has declined to appeal the AFL tribunal verdict, and they've forwarded their paperwork to WADA. So WADA have a further 21 days to look over the case before they decide to either appeal to CAS or not. Asada's reasoning was that it would delay the case getting to CAS if they appealed, because theirs would just stick within the AFL tribunal. They've also asked for the full judgment to be released so that they can forward that on to WADA.
They've obviously basically told, or WADA's basically told them, don't worry about it, we'll just go straight to CAS.
Yeah, because I think if it goes, for Asada, it's just going to go back into the AFL tribunal, and CAS, I think, possibly are going to have a slightly different definition on what's comfortable satisfaction as to what the AFL tribunal had, so that could prove a bit interesting. Now, the other kind of interesting things, we found out a little bit more information about the Hal Hunter case. There's a deadline of the 8th of May has been set for the AFL and Essendon to release information. Now, the Age reported that what they understand is that documents between Essendon and Dank, or any entity relating to Dank concerning the administration of AOD 9604 and thymosin beta 4, whether that was given to employees at Essendon, so they want any documents relating to that. They also want any medical records, including the results of blood tests Hunter had, and a copy of James Hurd's interview with Asada and the AFL on April 16th, 2013. Now, Essendon have engaged a leading OH&S law firm, apparently, so we'll find out a little bit more what's going on there. And then the other big thing that came out last Friday, where I think the AFL tried to hide it, but sorry, we're not going to ignore it. Stephen Jank was found guilty of 10 of the 30 offences he was charged with. Now, he was cleared of administration thymosin beta 4 to the players. We're not surprised by that happening at all. But he did attempt to traffic hexarelin to Essendon athletes and support persons. He assisted, encouraged, aided, abetted, and covered up the use of drug contrary to the anti-doping code, so those ones were all proven. There was another charge in relation to an official at the Carlton Football Club and involving Australian baseball. He was also found guilty on 2 or 3 charges to attempt to traffic to Essendon players Humanofort and a cocktail of drugs including insulin growth factor 1, insulin growth factor 2, mechano growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, folastatin and thymosin beta 4. So he said he's going to appeal, which means a full AFL tribunal will rehear the same case. That he couldn't be bothered turning up to or even sending a lawyer to for the first time. He said he thinks the charges are inconsistent with the facts, which he's never revealed, and it's how nice that he's only going to tell us the facts after he's seen the evidence. The guilty finding will impact only on AFL. It's not going to impact only on AFL participation, but it will, if whatever they put in place, which is possibly going to be a life ban because of those charges, it basically means all Australian sport he can't be involved in. So I think that's why he's trying to protest it. And that's kind of the major news, I think, that came out of the week.
Not touching cereal ever again.
What was that about cereal?
All those bloody things in those drugs, my goodness, it sounds like a cereal packet gone wrong.
Well, very true. I mean, how many growth factors were in there? That's what kind of blew me away. And insulin ones. I mean, I'm sorry, how many diabetics are there at Essendon?
Not very many, obviously.
It's all about the recovery.
I just love the fact that Dank didn't bother to turn up, didn't employ a lawyer at all. But he goes, oh, they got everything wrong.
Yeah, I can't afford a lawyer because I'm screwed literally. My wife's going to leave me with the kids now.
He's just, shonky.
He deserves everything that comes to him.
Well, that's it.
I'm quite pleased. I'm quite pleased that it's possibly going to be a life ban for all Australian sport, because he just should not be involved anywhere near any athletes or any human beings, actually.
Didn't mind the swipe that Cara gave Alan Jones last night on Footy Classified.
Oh, I missed that one. What was it?
Her little Cara's arrow was basically, Alan Jones, you're a soft cock for basically not asking any hard questions and blaming Gillan McLaughlin for all the AFL saga, or the drug saga.
Oh, yeah. Alan Jones got all his information from Bruce Francis, who's kind of been paid, employed via Essendon Herd. So he's pushing the Essendon side. So he was never going to be mean to Dank.
Oh, just before we move on, Pods looks like being 6 weeks now with a fracture.
Yeah, the swelling went down and they did some more tests again, and I'd heard that they suspected there might have been a fracture in there, and yeah, it was confirmed that there's a small one, so he's out for a while. And Harry Deer is now an indefinite. He's going to have a full shoulder reconstruction. So yeah, that's a
Line through the name.
Yeah, so I think there was a count. So we have 13 players on our list who are now unavailable through injury.
It's incredible that we can still fill our just about our best 22.
Fingers crossed that it remains that way.
13, I didn't think it was that many.
Yeah, I'd have to have a look in, but I think that's what was up. I was actually at the Crows coaching clinic tonight, and nice to see Riley Knights and Rory Atkins both walking around, no moon boot, and seem to be moving okay.
That's good news.
But the kids were all told they weren't allowed to tackle any of the players.
Gonna play football this year, John?
All right, let's move on. And of course, it was good to see us have a nice win in the slog last weekend against a fairly determined Melbourne, who were hell bent on making us work for the victory, which was good in my opinion. So, what do we all think about the game, guys? A good win under the circumstances.
It was very wet. It wasn't fun to sit there at the very start. It was like, oh, deja vu. I don't like the idea of this.
How good is Cam Ellis-Goldman? Not bad for a guy that can't kick.
Oh, the way he actually settled that goal he kicked in the pocket, he settled and he just slowed down that little bit, straightened up to kick it. It was just such a nice kick to see.
Both kicks were equally amazing.
Yeah, he just looked like he was going slowly.
Yeah, he obviously has been working very hard on settling over his kicks, and that's really, contributed to him distributing the ball and kicking goals now. So, I mean, he played really well. I thought it was a pretty good effort by us. I don't think that you can take a hell of a lot out of a game like that, the conditions being what they are and the opposition showing the tactics that they did. I think you just get away with the win on that one.
And while she kind of preempted that he thought it was going to go that way, he said it was going to be an arm wrestle and we were going to be happy to get into an arm wrestle, and that's what happened. The fact that we restricted them to 4 goals after that first initial flurry, I was quite pleased with, and probably about 2, maybe 3 of those were direct results of some stupidity on our part from a lot of our younger players, although Dougie did one of them.
Source did 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah, I think that they were the early ones, weren't they?
Oh yeah.
What I liked was we had a set plan for Lumumba, which is whenever he was on the wing, David McKay manned up on him, and when he was in their back lines, we had VB sitting on him. So there was a very set plan that we knew, and whenever he got the ball, it was always under pressure. He wasn't able to get those runs through, and he kind of got hammered into the ground.
What I really liked was Jeremy Howe's mark when it on the AFL website, because it's one of the marks of the week. Tex demolishes Lumumba. His hip is fair and square in the side of Lumumba's head. I know the fact that he wasn't injured from it.
So a bit worried about the starts again. We took 15 minutes to get going again this week, which if we did that against Hawthorn would be $7 down.
I did get to wave at Lynchy as he came back to be the loose man in defence. So I thought, oh, hello, Lynch, there you are. I think after about the third goal, he just all of a sudden appeared in our back lines going, oh, look at that. We've got a plan B. We've got a loose man in defence.
Yeah.
Did he wave back?
No, unfortunately. I think he was too busy watching the ball coming towards him.
Or ducking.
Ooh.
No, his name's not Jack Watts.
Yeah, I don't know what this slow start thing's all about, but we're going to have to fix it because it just seemed like they should have come out breathing fire against Melbourne considering what happened last year, and they just didn't seem to have their heads in it.
Hang on, we've only had one slow start. The 2 games before that, we were well and truly in front of
you're right.
quarter time.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and the Collingwood one was back and forth and it was fast, high-pressure game. It took ages before we got a score, but we came out to play at the start of that one.
Yeah, maybe it's it. Did we have any of the practice games that were like that? I can't remember.
I actually can't remember either.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it might have been the Port one a little bit, but not too much.
I don't remember there being a time where we were so far behind that I felt uncomfortable about the game. So it's possible that we had like a 1 or 2 goal, or we gave up a 1 or 2 goal lead.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that there's momentum, the shift happened, and we got it back, and then we just controlled it for the rest of the game pretty much.
Yeah, once we took control against Melbourne, we didn't really lose it.
It was just an intensity shift.
Yeah, Hogan has some issues with his ball drop, but we were quite happy that he kept having those issues.
That's an outtake.
Yes, it is.
Oh my God, the first one for the night.
There you go.
You were watching his ball drop closely, were you, Nikki?
It was a bit hard to miss it.
Meat and potatoes.
It was very high.
He had a high ball drop, did he?
Yes, he did.
Hulk Hogan.
Which you don't do when it's very windy.
Or cold, surprisingly.
Oh, geez, it was cold.
Anyway, moving right along.
So what do you guys think of Walker?
I thought he was uncompetitive.
I think since the first game, he's been quite ineffectual.
And yet he's still getting a couple of goals.
He still had 3, didn't he?
Yeah, apart from the mark in the goal square. They were cheapy goals. I mean, I mentioned it on the board, I think, during the week. He's going up one-handed. And I don't understand why he's doing it. It can only be a problem with his knee. Like, where he's worried about his knee and landing.
I watched, because I finally got to watch the replay last night, and I was taking a point of that. What he was actually doing was he was going up slightly sideways, so he was using his body and that hand down to just push his opponent just that little bit under the ball, but without it being like a full-on push in the back, so it's another way to get around it. So I think that's what's happening. If you actually watch it, his body's not straight onto the ball, it's always slightly turned, so he's actually pushing his opponent under the ball.
Yeah,
that's where it's coming through.
He seems to be really focused on his opponent at the moment. The commentators mentioned it multiple times, and I noticed it a few times against Collingwood, that he seems to have to find body contact before he can focus on the ball. And it's quite odd that he can't just go up without getting that body contact first.
Well, to me, I think it's symptomatic of him worrying about getting unbalanced in the air, and that's why he's worried about who's around him, and that's why he's not jumping front on. And I didn't look at it, Nikki, but I reckon if you look at it again, the side that he's turning will be the side that allows him to land on his good knee, not his bad knee.
Yeah, it's his left that he's using to push out. So he's landing on his right.
And it's creeping into his game. I've noticed it a couple of times over this season, and it was quite noticeable. Maybe it was wet, but I think he's still got some little mental hurdles to overcome with that knee yet. And
that's fair enough, I think. That's something that you can't kind of get over very as quickly. It changes depending on who the person is and what they can and can't cope with.
Oh, absolutely. And having the captaincy, the last thing that he would want is to be out for a season.
Or to lose confidence.
Now,
to lose confidence in himself and his ability to perform his role that he's required to do, as well as being captain.
Now, what did you guys think of a debutant getting the most tackles ever for a debutant?
That tackling was
The
fantastic.
ball. He was great. What a start.
Wow.
Yeah, he kind of did everything that I was seeing him do in the SNFL last year, so it was really pleasing to see that he could step up to that level and just look like he belonged. Oh, and speaking of little left footers, what about Eddie's little left foot pass to Lynch?
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful.
So Walshy's training of them having to train both sides of the body, it's coming off under pressure,
Most of the time,
unless your name's Hardigan or Cameron.
or Kelly. But it's about him giving them the confidence that they're not going to get berated for doing the wrong thing. That they can go onto their left, and if they make a mistake, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, here's an interesting thing. David Teague, because I was at the aftermatch function in the little mini shed that they have, and David Teague was interviewed, and they asked him about, what was Walsh's reaction in that first quarter when they would get the run on. And he said that when he worked with Walshy at West Coast, Walshy could get very intense in the box, but now he's a head coach. He seems to be a lot more relaxed, and he was very calm, and he was just, okay, so why is this happening? What's gone wrong? You guys need to find out what's gone wrong, and we need to sort it. And he said that Walshy he's just been incredibly calm and very different from how he was as a line coach.
Yeah, he looks like he's waiting for his cigar and his coffee sort of thing.
Sometimes I thought he just looked quite bored and might go for a nap. The other thing was I did try and watch the forward line movement a little bit, because we still had a couple of cases where we were bombing along to Eddie, and that's when Eddie is our full forward. He is our only target deep in the forward line. Walker's often being rested at that point, and Lynch and Jenkins are actually playing up the field. So those couple of times where we've seen it happening on screen, we're not there at the game going, why are they just bombing it long to Eddie? Where's the other guys? Because that's the setup. We've got him playing out a full forward.
Is it the setup, though, or is it a breakdown in structure? Because you wouldn't have Eddie playing full forward and Jenkins and Lynch up the ground. Surely not.
No, that was the structure. I think sometimes that's when you've got Dangerfield as well. So you've got him and Danger. So Danger's let out one side, Eddie's let out to the other. They're kicking to Eddie to at least try and bring the ball down, but the other guys aren't coming through to get the crumbs.
But they're still putting it on his head. They're not putting it out in front of him to lead onto.
He leads to the side an awful lot and not actually at the ball carrier. So I wonder whether that's playing a part into it a little bit.
There's no way that he should ever be a marking target.
Except he always has been his whole career.
Yeah, but he shouldn't be.
He's done that. I know.
If we've got Danger and Jenkins and Lynch in our forward lines, or Walker instead of Danger in our forward lines, there's no need, and it's actually diluting Dees' use if he's having to go up for the mark, because then he's out of position for the crumbs.
And he's so dangerous when he's on the ground.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't understand why Jerker doesn't go deep when Walker's not there.
Yeah, that was an odd one to me. But incidentally, we're just watching his game, and the discussion we kind of have about it is he's just got no idea how to play in the wet. I mean, I don't think he's ever because he hasn't really come up through playing junior. He did play football a little bit, but I think it was more basketball that he was doing as a junior. He just doesn't have the knowledge on how to play in the wet. And it was really obvious.
I can't accept that. How many times do you reckon he would have trained in the wet?
Not often in Adelaide.
We don't do it. Yeah, we don't do it that often. If it's something like that, then they go inside and things like that. It was just really obvious. I was so annoyed at his game. I'm not using that as an excuse. It's just an understanding of why he's doing that. So that's something that needs to be worked on with him. Yeah, he was the one I came away from the game most frustrated about.
He's like a headless chook. He doesn't know where to be. He doesn't seem to know it just seems like watching the game like he doesn't know what his role is at any time and point sort of thing.
I'm confident in my gut feel that if Loden wasn't injured, he'd be playing right now.
Yeah, I agree with
And it was nice to actually see Loden did actually exist, because there was some training footage and he was there. And it's like, Didn't realise you were actually on our list because we'd never seen you since the start, really.
I reckon there might be a bit more urgency to get Loud and fit.
Well, Jack Osborne's actually been playing quite well in the SANFL. He's finally using that huge height and bulk that he's got and doing some nice things in the SANFL. So there's another one that could start putting pressure on him.
Because he's got nearly half a foot extra than Jenkins, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've quite liked in the SANFL, the guys know to use his height and they'll kick it up high. So he just stands behind the defender, puts his arms in the air and goes, nobody's going to punch it away from him.
What's his kicking like?
Actually not bad. The problem I had with him last year in the SANFL, he had all that bulk. He's quite strong, but he didn't know how to use it. And the 2 games I've seen him play this year, he was really using that bulk and pushing it and just getting those other players out of the way. So he actually looked like a footballer.
Okay, final thoughts on the game?
We got the win, but room for improvement.
Yeah, well said, Waffle.
Yeah, the 4 points is always very nice. Still some things to work on, but I think overall, nice team performance.
Certainly a game we would have dropped in the past, so it's good to have that win on the board.
Yeah, I agree. Take the points, move on.
Oh, and we won the melee.
I think it was a 0-0 draw, wasn't it?
No, did you guys hear what Walker said about it? Which was that Tomo was told by Walshy to go sort out Bernie, and you can actually see in the vision that he does get Bernie in a headlock right towards the end and has quite a few words with him. And then in the last quarter, Bernie isn't on Dangerfield.
Yeah, no, they did.
And yet Danger was still ineffectual.
He played up forward for pretty much most of it, though.
All right, well, that was the review of last week's win over Melbourne. Thanks, guys. And I think we all agree that it was just good to get the points and get out of the rain. So there we go. So moving on now, we've got obviously a pretty tight-looking game coming up this weekend against the Western Bulldogs, despite the fact that the Bullies might be a couple down due to fairly nasty injuries. There, I still expect on a fast track it'll be a close game. So joining us from the Western Bulldogs board is the Honey Badger. How are you doing, mate?
I'm going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all. Probably the thing we're most interested in at the moment, mate. Any word you can give us on injuries down there at the moment?
Yeah, look, we weren't going so well before the game on the weekend with Tommy Liberatore going down with a knee during the pre-season, but we've lost the guy who replaced him in the guts in Mitch Wallace with a back spasm. And we had Marcus Bontempelli and Matthew Boyd out on the weekend, and we've also lost... Who was it? We've lost someone else too.
Al Morris.
So Al Morris with the shoulder injury, so he looks to be gone for between 6 and as many as 12 because he's been in for surgery. So it's looking pretty ordinary in all areas of the ground.
And how are Bontempelli and Boyd looking at the moment? Do you know anything that you can tell us?
Bontempelli is apparently set to play this week. I think they said he was about 85% good to go against the Hawks, but they weren't going to risk him on a wet ground down there. And Boydie's got a history of calf injuries, so it might be a little while before he comes back. I think he might be training okay, but he's had that history and he's 32 now, so they're pesky once they get to that age, the calf injuries.
Do you think there's any possibility that your boys felt that you might be a better chance this week against the Crows rather than against the Hawks, and so you might have held Bontempelli back, where if you were playing someone you might have had a better chance of beating, he might have played last week?
Yeah, look, I think that's a possibility, particularly because he was so close to playing. We might have thought it's better to go balls out for the win against the Crows rather than taking him down to Tassie and perhaps aggravating something. But I think if it was in Melbourne, he might have played, if it was under the roof. But again, I'm not sure how the current coach and current regime is going to go about it, because I don't think there was a great deal of risk management beforehand. So now we're sort of getting a feel as supporters for how they're going to manage players. So we'll see how they go. I'm still not 100% that he's going to play this weekend, but we'll see.
He's got plenty of time to get over it, given that it's the last game on Sunday.
Yeah, well, that's benefits us, particularly with Footscray playing beforehand. So hopefully he pulls up, because he's probably already our best after 18 games, but particularly with Liver out. So we really hope he'll be ready, because that'll give us a shot. And we've gone okay against the Crows recently, but I'm not confident. But I'll be more confident with Bontempelli in, obviously.
Now you have quite a tallish forward line. So who out of there, are there any there? Of course, I know Tory Dixon is kind of, what is it? How many goals did he score against us last time? So there's kind of some interesting ones there. That how do you think they're going to match up against our backline?
El Torre's an interesting one, because he's had a couple of good games against the Crows recently, but he's a bit of a whipping boy at the Dogs. He's quite a good overhead mark, and he's a good snap for goal, but he's had trouble with his forward pressure, and he doesn't offer a lot outside of the forward line. But he's had a really good start to the year, and he has had good games against Adelaide, but he's probably been pushed down the order a little bit, because we've brought in Tommy Boyd, and that's had an effect on Stewie Cramry and Jake Stringer, and even our second string forwards who are going into the ruck, none of whom would get selected at just about any other side, like Jack Redpath, Ace Cordy. So it could be too tall, but fortunately guys like Dixon bring the forward pressure that we need. So it could be a real benefit to have him having played so many good games against Adelaide, lining up as the fifth or sixth marking target.
Honeychurch has come a long way this year already. I like he's standing out in the games I've watched.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Honeychurch.
Yeah, well, he only
come a fair way.
Yeah, well, last year he played more up forward than in the middle, and he had a reasonable impact in one game as the sub, and in 2 games he played the length of it. But this year, with Libba going down, he's moved up into the middle, and he's really excelled. He's hit the scoreboard, he's tackled well, and look, I'm his biggest fan, but I think it's a real boon for us that we've had a guy who's played just 3 games beforehand coming up and having such an impact. He's only a little guy, he's a tick under 6 foot, and he'd blow away in a strong breeze, but he's really making the tackle stick, and it's been a huge benefit for us with so many inside mids going down.
It's kind of interesting that the 2 teams this season who are the best tacklers are us and you guys. So it could be the battle of the tacklers on the weekend.
Yeah, well, that's really interested me. I mean, with Walsh saying that he wanted to bring those sort of standards to the Crows from Port Adelaide, he wanted to bring the pressure and that real ball-winning ability that the guy haven't paid close attention to the Crows, but it seemed as though he thought that was lacking a little bit. But it's probably been the strongest aspect of the Bulldogs game without that class on the outside. So I think it's probably not going to suit us on the weekend with Wallace, Liberatore, possibly Bontempelli not playing. But it'll be interesting if some of these players do pull up to see how the 2 midfields match up. They both seem really strong in that regard.
Do you think you've got the depth in the midfield to go with all game?
No. I think at the start of the season, it wasn't as bad as was being made out. Cooney wasn't as big a loss as many thought, because, to put it bluntly, it was a downhill skier. But Griffin was huge. Griffin's a Rolls Royce, and he's as hard as they come on the inside. We had Wallace, Liberatore, we had Honeychurch ready to go through there, Bontempelli. And with so many of these guys plagued with injuries, it's not looking good for us. We've got the biggest strength of our game has had the rug pulled out from under it. And that's why I think we're going to struggle for the time being until we can get Wallace back. I don't think the depth is there.
Yeah, it seemed to me that was always going to be from this year. Was just if you copped a couple of injuries, then seems to have been the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you get a bottom side, and I think we saw it last year with St Kilda. They looked really promising in the first 5 rounds. They were 3-2, and younger players like Billings were performing well. Then the injury started to take a toll on them, and they fell off, and they eventually finished on the bottom. I don't think it's going to be that bad for us. I think the depth is going to be there eventually, with Wallace coming back, Boyd coming back, Morris coming back. But there's going to be a drop-off in the next couple of weeks, and I think with the young players are going to have to step up if we're going to maintain the status quo, let alone get ahead.
Yeah, well, it's good that you're playing a brand footy, and I mean, it's only a couple of drafts, and hopefully you guys can do well through the next draft too, and get some depth on your list.
And even against the Hawks, there was still, when you were playing that attacking football and were able to get runs on, it was really entertaining to watch. It was just unfortunate that Hawthorn were able to do it twice as much on the way back.
Yeah, I mean, with guys going down in the first quarter, and obviously Hawthorn are a hardened side and dispose of it very well and play that really skilled style, I suppose you could say. It was always going to be dangerous for us as soon as we turned it over. But I think 70 points is the final margin, but it's not as bad as it looked with guys having gone down. I mean, we've brought guys in who have really stood up. I mean, Honeychurch nearly had his shoulder put out by Luke Hodge in a late bump, and Lucas Webb came in for his first game and stood up. So I think it's promising. It's promising that we could play to that level even after guys had gone down, but the margin didn't flatter us.
And what about the Crows, guys? How do we start shaping up this week? Any changes?
I wonder if this could be a chance for Lever to actually come in at all because of his height, because that Bulldogs forward line is quite tall, and I was just kind of looking at that and our back line, and it's like, I don't quite know whether I think there's a chance there that there could be some changes made.
We'll be stretched if we don't pull a few taller defenders in, and the Bullies, I never underestimate them. Like, they seem to play Etihad really well, so we'll have to stop them from the middle, but never under their height in the forward line is a concern.
They always play well against us as well.
Yes, I think they're holding a grudge from 97 and 98 still.
No, I think Lever could be a really good option in that regard, because he's tall and you would describe him as a key defender, but he's quite versatile at his height. He's not quite the big hulking key defender, but he's a really smart guy who can hurt you on the rebound too. So he could be an option for so many players that we've got. He could be there for Stringer or even Dixon. So I'd be really pleased to see him get a game. Is he fit for that though?
Oh, he's skinny as, but I think Tomo, Scott Thompson was asked after his first game, how he went, because Scott Thompson played in the SNFL, and he said, yeah, he's skinny as, but he's a competitive bugger.
Yeah, I think that just sums him up pretty well. I actually wanted us to draft Jake with the pick we traded away to get Tom Boyd, pick 6. I was a big fan. Thought he'd slot in nicely to our back line, but unfortunately, I know the Crows were keen on him for a long time, so you've got a really good one there.
Yeah, the little what I've seen in the SNFL of him so far has kind of gone, yeah, there's something kind of special about this kid. I'm quite looking forward to seeing how he develops.
Yeah, it's got an old head on young shoulders, I think, and there's so many aspects to his game that could see him excel at AFL level. I'm really excited to see him play his first game and see how he goes. See,
because Kelly's tall.
Kelly's 189, I think.
Yeah, he's taller than Genie.
He is, but Lever's 194 or 195. It's the kind of game that I've got a feeling that Walsh would have had Podsy Adley in mind for, considering he can swing forward or back, or even play a bit through the middle if he needs to. So it's interesting that Lever was brought up in the conversation, because He's just about the only tall defender we've got left at the moment who's not playing. So it is an interesting thought as to whether he might get a game.
But alternatively, how tall is the Bulldogs' backlines to contend with Walker, Lynch and Jenkins?
Yeah, I think the Bullies will struggle to cover us down back, to be honest.
Well, I think we will, but having lost Morris, who's an excellent backman, who probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, we've got Jordan Roughhead down there, who's quite good on the intercept, and Michael Tully, who is better when wrestling with the big guys. But you might find Joel Hamling comes in to play his first game after 3 years on the rookie list at Geelong to cover that Morris role. So it's quite an experience. There wouldn't be 100 games between them, and they'll probably struggle to contend with Walker and Jenkins, both of whom are excellent. And it's lucky that Podsy Adley's not playing for us, really. I think he tore us apart last time that he had.
Who goes with bets from your guys?
It's difficult to say. We've got Easton Wood, who missed last week with a hamstring twinge, which has been a real concern for him over his career. So if he comes back in, he might have the pace and the strength to go with Betts. But if not, we might send Liam Picken back, who's played a defensive forward role for most of 2015 in the pre-season and thus far in the home and away season.
Would you not expect him to go to a Sloane or a Dangerfield?
It's not likely. I think we've done away with tagging midfielders of late. I think we saw on the weekend Luke Hodge had 44 touches and he sat most of the last quarter out. So Picken, who's been our tagger for so long, has been groomed in that forward role, but I think necessity might force him back. So, no, it's probably not likely he goes to the middle unless they decide to put him in there because Mitch Wallace has missed out, who's played a bit of a defensive role recently.
So does it essentially come down to really Jacobs versus Minson?
It could, but again, I really doubt our clearance winning ability. Look, Will's competed really well in the ruck so far this year, but around the ground he's been less than useless. He's get over. He doesn't provide the running that other ruckmen do. And again, the guys that he's tapping it down to are going to be inexperienced, Jong, Bontempelli and so forth, with Wallace and Libber out. So I don't think Will's going to have a big impact on the game. I think Jacobs is probably going to dominate him regardless, but whether or not his taps are to effect, he's probably going to have more of an influence than Will.
It's just for some reason, Minson just seems to step up a notch against us. I've noticed in the other games we've played, he really seems to not like us.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the deal is there because Minno's from Adelaide and he played for Norwood before he got drafted, so there's a bit of a connection there. I don't know what went on, but I have noticed that I think he chased down Dangerfield a couple of years ago, and that'd just be about it'd have to be the only holding the ball Will's got in his career. But yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see how the midfield goes. It's such an unknown for us with these guys out.
So do you think Beveridge is going to try and lock us down, or are you just going to play that fast, free-flowing game that you've been trying to get the team up and going with from the start of the season, which I've enjoyed watching when it's been coming off?
Yeah, look, on the evidence of what we've seen with Beveridge, he wants us to play that open style of football, and he hasn't been shy to make adjustments. Like we were cut open against West Coast when we turned it over, but you found against Richmond that he pushed them out wide and they scored quite inaccurately as a result. So he's quite a reactive coach, and I think that's good for us with such a young squad. So I don't think he'll try to lock Adelaide down. So we'll see a few guys have really good games. We might see key forwards kick a bag, or Sloane or Dangerfield might rack up quite a bit of ball, particularly after Danger got a bath from Bernie Vince last week. But I think it should be exciting in that regard because we're not going to drag you down to our level, so to speak. It's going to be a real contest of skill and pace and smarts.
So as a Doggies supporter, what do you want to see out of the game from your boys?
Look, at the end of the day, we're going to be walking off the ground with a young squad who they're probably going to lose. I just want to see endeavour. I want to see guys like Rovat and Honeychurch and Bontempelli tackling to the level that they have, even if it's not easy for them out there. Not that it has been at any stage so far, but it's going to be harder because guys are out. So I really just want to see the endeavour. And from another perspective, I want to see them presenting, because that's been so absent in 2012, 2013, 2014. Under McCartney, there was no effort to present. There was no pushing up the ground, making the ball come to you. It was just stagnant. So just effort and giving your teammates options. That's what I want to see.
It's funny, we could probably...
So basically building for the future.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate how many times I've repeated that over the past couple of years, but that's all we expect of the young guys. It's such a young list when you look at Morris, who's out for weeks, and take Murphy out as well as an outlier, and you can't ask much more of these guys, and they've excelled so far. I mean, Bontempelli's ridiculous. He is ridiculously good. And Honeychurch has played above the level we expected. Michael Talia, who I think the Crows have been into recently, he's gone to another level. So they've stepped up, but it's a matter of how long they can sustain it, and I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, we're quite pleased with the Talia we've got, but, his brother could be handy as well.
Yeah, I'd trade for your Talia in an instant, but Michael's doing well.
Not allowed him.
Yeah, I figured that after you've lost Bach and all that. I think we can leave you alone for a little while.
Okay, quick whip around, tips and margins and all that. Final thoughts?
I'm going to say us by, I might go 6 goals.
Waffle, how about you, mate?
Us by 28.
Yeah, I was going to say us by 5 goals.
I reckon it might be a good old-fashioned shellacking, unfortunately. I think the Bullies are going to really try hard in the first half, but like I said earlier, I think their depth and injuries is going to really see them struggle to run out the game, and I think we're going to run over the top of them probably by 8 to 10. Sorry, Badger.
No, I'll cop it. Look, I think it's a fair assessment. Look, our ball-winning ability is going to be really tested in the middle, particularly, and it'll come down to the strength of the back line, which has gelled pretty well, and the forward line to present that pressure. So I don't think we'll get flogged, but I think the Crows will probably run out 4 to 5 goal winners, and it'll never be a contest. The lead will be established early, and they'll hold it throughout the game. Alrighty,
well, that was our preview of the round 4 match against Western Bulldogs at Etihad. It's the Sunday afternoon horror slot, which I can't stand. Thanks very much for joining us, Honey Badger from the Western Bulldogs board, and good luck for the weekend, mate.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Good on you. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Badger.
Thank you.
Well, that brings an end to our podcast for this week. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Waffle, thanks very much, mate.
Thanks again, Phoenix. It's been great.
Thanks, Danos. Short and sharp this week.
Looking forward to the game.
And Nikki, thanks. Fucking Skype. Thanks for leaving the Billy Piper references to a minimum. And the outtakes. Just I'm going to have to buy another hard drive, I think.
Oh, well.
All right, take it easy, guys. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
See ya, Phoenix.
See ya.
You make me feel so right. Every day and night. 'Cause the only time
You've been listening to CrowCast, brought to you by Casmar Event Technologies for all your live audio and studio recording needs. See you at the footy.